Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. It's standard practice for French Cameroon to go kill and harass relatives of people they seek to kill or arrest, a total violation of the rights of these relatives. Unable to face the Amazonian restoration forces on the field, the La Republique du Cameroun military officers have resorted to attacking, arresting, and killing relatives of the restoration forces. This is just one of many acts of human rights violations perpetrated by the La Republique du Cameroun's military, which is why the interim government has chosen to kickstart 2023 war draft, the game changer, with a code name, the winning phase. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll see how the interim government changes its strategy to finally dismantle the Franco-Cameroon strongholds in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia. And for that, we'll have the Secretary of State for the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization take us through this exclusive session. Before we get there, we'll get the prime headlines.
Well, these are the prime headlines for today. We'll start with the story of La République du Cameroun gendarmerie as it wipes an entire family in Babanki Chungo. Also today, we're going to be looking at protecting Ambazonian citizens while looking forward to justice. Is a story that would definitely interest you. Code named The Winning Phase. The IG, that is the interim government, changes strategy to finally dismantle the Franco-Cameroon strongholds. I'm sure you want to know how they want to do that. Also today, we're going to be bringing updates of the election in West Africa and Nigeria, and also the update on the earthquake in Turkey. Now the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
While our Republic the Cameroon colonial authorities in Ambazonia are bent on wiping out their entire population of Ambazonia, While dictator Biya is denying and opening for a genuine dialogue, his elements are on a killing expedition on the ground in Amazonia. The Colonial Brigade commander of Tube local government area on February 16, 2023, entered Babanki to go and killed an entire family. Is it by killing women and children that the thugs of Beer think that they are going to kill the Amazonian spirit of fighting for restoration? Now, on this sad note, we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Oni Obala. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. The colonial commander of Tuba Colonial Gendarmerie Post, a colonial officer from French Cameroon, wiped out an entire family in Babanki, Tungo. Women and children were not spared. This macabre act took place on Thursday, February 16, 2023. Miraculously, a 4-month-old baby survived the massacre, lying on the dripping blood of her dead mother.
The crime of these innocent Amazonian victims of the excesses of the colonial La Republic de Cameroon soldiers is that they are relatives to an Amazonian freedom fighter. A standard practice for French Cameroon is to kill and harass relatives of people they seek to kill or arrest, a total violation of the rights of these relatives.
Well, usually unable to face the might of the Amazonian restoration forces on the field, they have resorted to attacking, arresting, and killing people related to these fighters. This incident in Babanki Tungo is just one of such acts committed for the same reason by the element of the colonial Paul Biya deployed to Amazonia.
All right, and moving on, Ottawa announced last month that it has been leading discussions between the La Republic de Cameroon and Southern Cameroon's Amazonian freedom fighter groups, which have been in conflict that has violently escalated in recent years. After the announcement, the La Republic de Cameroon government stated it was not working with an external mediator. Previous attempts by Switzerland and the Vatican to bring about peace talks in Cameroon have failed.
Now, quoting Melanie Jolie, she said, "Peace processes are always messy and take time, and this is a conflict that has been going on for 40 years. Canada was seen as an ideal interlocutor because its constitutions accommodate both Anglophone and Francophone traditions. It has no colonial-era baggage or significant economic interest in the country, and it has long-standing diplomatic ties to Cameroon."
The conflict in the southern Cameroon's Amazonia began in late 2016 when Colonial La Republic de Cameroon security officers were accused of using excessive force against peaceful demonstrators led by teachers and lawyers who were protesting the perceived marginalization of the country's minority southern Cameroonians' education and legal system. Dialogue between the Yaoundé government, teachers, and lawyers at the early stages of the conflict failed.
Well, the conflict escalated when Amazonian freedom fighters, in an act of self-defense, put pressure on the Yaoundé government for political recognition and independence for the southern Cameroon's Amazonia. A major national dialogue in 2019 was greeted by many as a great first step, but it wasn't enough. It only turned out to be a monologue.
As the repressive Yaoundé colonial government further reduced the southern Cameroon's Amazonia from equal status to a special status that was dead on arrival, the use of military means to combat the Amazonian fighters has only escalated the violence, with civilians caught in the middle. The UN estimates that the violence since the protests began has claimed tens of thousands of lives and has kept over 600,000 children out of school. Over 1 million people have fled their homes and are internally displaced or refugees in other countries. Over 500 homes and villages have been razed and burnt down as well.
Well, attacks by armed colonial La Republic de Cameroon soldiers on students, teachers, and schools across the southern Cameroon's Amazonia since 2017 have had an enormous impact on children's education. This devastating reality has made the children of Amazonia more vulnerable to abuse, exploitation, and violence.
Canada and Cameroon would have an opportunity to reinforce commitment to the protection of these children, but what have they done? In 2018, Cameroon endorsed the International Safe Schools Declaration, which Canada has also endorsed, and the Vancouver Principles on Peacekeeping and the Prevention of the Recruitment and Use of Child Soldiers, which Canada spearheaded.
Unfortunately for the children of Cameroon, this conflict in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia is not the only exposure to violence that exists. Boko Haram in the Grand North region bordering Nigeria has been accused of recruiting and using children in violence since 2014. Exposing children to violence can increase the likelihood that they will engage in violent behaviors in the future. Preventing recruitment and use in the first place is therefore paramount to breaking circles of violence.
While nationally peace processes are critical, lessons from other contexts and best practices are essential. International calls for dialogue between the Amazonian freedom fighters and the Colonial Republic of Cameroon government authorities need to take place. If the leaders of all sides involved fails to prioritize the protection of children in the justice and peace process, this will have a negative impact on future generations.
The children of the southern Cameroon's Amazonia deserve the opportunities we all wish for our children to live in peace and harmony so that they may reach their full potential. But until our Republic of Cameroon is forced to the negotiation table, as the VP said recently, protecting lives of the people of Amazonia, children inclusive, through every means possible should be the priority of the Amazonian Restoration Forces, and that is a task to the best of their ability that they have proven true to.
Well, codenamed the winning phase, the interim government has changed the strategy to finally dismantle the Franco-Cameroon stronghold. While the well-focused interim government has started dismantling the Franco-Cameroon hegemony through the creation of local government areas, 61 local government areas, and 13 counties, then zoning of their entire territory as follows. Savannah zone comprising of Boyo, Donga, Mantun, Menchun, Boyi, and Ngokentuje counties. The Midland zone comprising of Mezam, Momo, Libielem, and Mayu counties. And the Atlantic zone made up of Kupe, Monanguba, Meme, Ndian, and Fako counties.
Well, this year, unlike in the past, the interim government intends to carry the exercise zone by zone, meaning the draft that will kick start on Saturday, February 25th, will see the Savannah launching, and they will be supported by the rest of the zones and all Amazonians of good faith all over the world. From the Savannah, the train will move to the Midlands and the Atlantic. After the zones, the draft will go round again county by county. This new strategy will mobilize and concentrate funds in the central treasury to avoid money pilfering through wrong hands and hindering progress. It will be strictly for the federal government and project focused aimed at realizing feasible projects, revamping the troops in order to redouble firepower on home front and put the enemy at bay once and for all.
The interim government says this year is a year of acceleration to hit the final nail on the enemy. The IG affirms that La Republique du Cameroon is collapsing and the handwriting is on the wall. Well, before we get to Niger, just like we did hint you that we have Niger in the studio, before we get to Niger, let's take a look at the communique from the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization. There is this communique that was released on the 17th of February 2023. Would want to go through this communique and then get across to Nijo, ask him a few questions pertaining the award drafting that would be starting. All right, so demonstrating highest membership numbers in La Republique du Cameroon and counties with very low redemption of pledges coupled with outright refusal by some county leaders to release funds to federal government as mandated into the national treasury. Now, this is reviewing the previous Amazonian War draft at a meeting of February 9th, 2023, and what I just read was the first highlight. Well, the second highlight is recognize that most actions by various leaders were with good intentions, but unfortunately, a lot of mistakes were made and a lot went wrong, particularly with procurement. Now, this led to absolute devastation and total collapse of some local governments and counties, regrettably, with the Amazonian Restoration Forces abandoned, and stranded. The third is the federal government is currently the strongest surviving functional structural unit to manage draft funds. And of course, the fourth is evidently your government has been able to sustain recent significant action on home front with the small scale of 2022 federal draft funds.
Well, the communique goes on to say, hence the need for us all to draft our federal government more than last year. With such experience, your government opted for recalibration. On HF, due to the collapse of some local government areas and counties, the government opted to revive the stranded Amazonian restoration forces rather than allow them to vanish. In the diaspora, Award 23 is thus restructured to be project focused with immediate use of funds to allow for continuous actions on HF. Draftees include counties, local government areas, and Amazonia citizens and sympathizers. Anticipated highest redemption of pledges, not numbers as in previous years. Unveil everybody in local government area or county by drafting and redeeming pledges, no room to hide. Allow the federal government to utilize the funds on strategic needs on HF with capacity to relocate resources in accordance with the trend of needs.
All right, so let's look at the appeal. That is the action that is required. Now, county chairpersons are expected or requested to do the following: consult their leadership teams for a meeting date with their Department of Finance resource mobilization to discuss modalities for the forthcoming Award 23, of course, the federal government and county draft. B, contact the DFRM with agreed date and time on or before 16th February, 10 p.m. and available meeting appointments with the DFRM are Friday, 17th February to 8 to 10 p.m. Amber time. All right. And so there is a tentative schedule for the Award 23 Phase 1 government draft. That's the federal government draft. February 25th is for Savannah Zone. March 18th is for Midlands. April 15th is for Atlantic. May 27th is for Savannah. June 17th, Midlands and Atlantic.
Well, onto the phase 2 of the weekly counties draft award 23. The dates are July, and the county would be Bui, DMC, Donga Matun County, Mezam, and Maymay. And in August, we have the Federal Capital Territory, Fako, Manu, Boyo, Momo, and Indian. Then this on September, that will be for Menchum, Ngoke, Tunja, KMC, and Labialem.
All right, so we have the tentative schedule for Award 23 Phase 3 Federal Government Draft. October 21st, Savannah. November 18th, Midlands. December 16th, Atlantic. Well, the Department for Finance Resource Mobilization have scheduled a sensitization and awareness raising meeting on Saturday, 18th February at 8 p.m. with the following revolutionary leaders, all county and local government chairpersons, and all defense chairpersons. The meeting aims to facilitate the creation of zonal federal draft teams to coordinate all cabinet members, directors at the presidency, judiciary, members of the interim House of Representatives, and donors for each zone during their respective drafts. Well, the Award 23 has been scheduled to be launched with the federal government draft for Savannah Zone this coming Saturday, 25th of February, and on ABC TV, commencing at 8 p.m. Amber time by President Samuel Ikome Sako, backed by his entire government, cabinet, judiciary, and honorable members of the interim House of Representatives. Of course, this is signed by NIJO, SOS for Finance and Resource Mobilization, DFRM. And like we rightly told you from the onset of this particular news broadcast, that NIJO is with us in the studio. NIJO, should we say Happy New Year to you? Because I'm not sure we've sent this year.
I know, I know. Um, yeah, we'll not be at fault to say Happy New Year. Hello, ladies. 1 year and Star. It's been a while. Um, it's like I'm always alive when there's something to do with draft. Once the draft season is over, I go into hibernation. Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's nice to have you. All right. So what now? From the beginning, from the communique we saw, we realized that there were challenges as to the last draft, and I'm sure most of which is people were complying late, just like the communique mentioned. Are you saying that that's the reason why the year 2023 draft is starting earlier? Because if I can remember correctly, the 2022 draft started around June, July, thereabouts. But here we are, February, and we're already talking about the first federal draft.
Yeah, thank you. Well, before I get on to your listeners and viewers, let me take the opportunity to say I'm humbled to be here and send 1,000 gun salutes to our unshakable fighters on home front and to all Amazonians who are tuned to your very favorable TV platform this evening. And of course, you ladies and your technicians in the background. I'll give the rest of the 21 Gonzalez to you guys for a marvelous job you're doing. Yes, thank you. I mean, you have taken the pains to read through those communiques, and I can confirm that the meeting you read through on the communique about that was meant to hold on the 18th held actually, and there are a couple of reasons why the government decided to revamp um, the draft or Award 23, as you have read on the communique, but there are a few more reasons. But when you go out to write an item out, you cannot possibly list every possible item, otherwise the writing becomes too elaborate and then not many people can stay focused. Orally, I can also add as an explanation that there were lots of discrepancies between within counties. And what do I mean? When we draft a county, the money belongs to the county. When we drafted the federal government in October last year, the money that was drafted belonged to everybody, because the federal government could use that money where need arises. And you have been following up what's going on home front. Prelude to what you read on the memo, due to the coup plotters' actions and lots of mistakes that were highlighted in the memo, a few counties actually became non-existent. Now, if you put all of this on top of the discrepancies that exist, what I mean discrepancies is not every county in Ambazonia has the capacity to recruit, to train, to equip, and to maintain an effective fighting force. Some counties are very good at recruiting, some counties are good at training, some counties are good at making the know-how of making our equipment. We moved away from spending thousands of our hard-earned dollars going abroad to get sticks and the rest of it, and we centered on local material to prosecute our war. But the training of making those farm tools was not uniform. At the time of training, again, these discrepancies meant that some counties gained the knowledge quite fast and were using, while some counties either didn't have the resources, the manpower to train. And so already at that point, there was discrepancy, and this has carried along. And so At this point, we have 13 counties, but they're not all at the same level of the know-how of our farm tools. Another discrepancy is not every county is making effective use of financial resources put at their disposal, for instance, to prosecute this war. Some counties, again, have links that they can purchase things, and others don't. Not every LGA is able to put together an effective human and material source. Some counties have people, some don't. Fighters, others don't have. Now, the absence of a budget as well it's another issue. So you put all this together, the core thing is, if we keep moving around and drafting counties, we have these issues to deal with. You draft a county that hasn't got the manpower or the know-how, then those resources given to them might be underutilized. And on top of that, if we draft a county that has all these things, can train, can recruit, can do everything, their draft money is to defend the borders within their borders. They don't have the authority to cross border and support other fighters in another county, because the draft money is their money, it's budgeted. But as I said earlier, when you draft the federal government, this money, they have the flexibility. It's a federal government, so they're in control. They have the flexibility to move resources where need be. So in this instance, many Amazonians thought that we needed to change the way we're doing things. One of our common phrases during this our struggle is, you cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So, as a government, they thought that instead of doing this same draft day in, day out, doing this, and some counties have resources, others don't have, and we have the money that they can't use to help the others, let us tweak this around. And so, in view of this, the government recommended these changes, that all defense activities are coordinated by the executive branch through the ANSC, which is the Ambazonian National Security Council, which is the best suited to allocate resources in a more expeditious manner, where they know that the realities in this part of the county, in the home front, need this at this point. So you get phone calls that there are 20 armored cars driving into Nkambe and so on. The ANSC has to react immediately and support a DMC, because the boys there will need support at that time. If at the same time you have 5 driving into Bengui or Momo, then the ANC has the right to relocate those funds and share them. So that was the position of the government, and many Amazonians bought into that. Now, to do this, we also needed structures in place. That if we have a 3-phase draft with starting in February, then as that table you read through indicated, we have 3 zones. We can do the first phase in the first 3 months of the year during the draft, which will be February, Savannah, March, Midlands, and April, the Atlantic zones. Now, this first phase, the government expects and hopes and appeals that for every Ambazonian who has $1,000, who has budgeted $1,000 to draft this year, because it's still the same amount of money we're expecting, minimum. Others can, and has always been, others have drafted more. But for those who are struggling and are committed to pay $1,000 for their draft, during these first 3 months, February, March, and April, it will be highly appreciated if you can pay your $1,000 upfront. You can split into 2, pay $500 or $600 in February, and the balance in March when we're doing Midlands. Or if the worst comes to the worst, divide it by 3. Pay part of it in February, part of it in March, and when we do Atlantic in April, complete your $1,000 and we're fine. Now, this would put a significant amount of money in the hands of ANSC, who would be able to meet the challenges on home front. Sorry, I hope I'm not taking too much of your time, but I thought at the start of this,
I love the
discussion,
foundational
yeah,
lessons you're given here, because
yeah.
the next question would have resulted to what you are already answering.
Answering,
Oh,
actually.
But
sorry.
but
Okay, okay.
while you're analyzing this, we would also want to find out the ANSC, right? How were they constituted? Are they members from
Yeah,
different counties? Are they
yeah.
representatives from
Good,
different local
good
governments?
question.
I think you should
Yeah,
also brief us on that while you're also
yeah.
giving us this foundational analysis.
Thank you, thank you. It's the ANSC is a national council, first of volunteering Amazonians with military expertise and those who know what they're doing in the sector. And the whole council then has representatives from all the 13 counties. So defense chairs of our 13 counties form part of that council. The LGA chairs of our functional local government areas form part of that council. And of course, our commander-in-chief has the prerogative to appoint members based on their expertise and who are willing to share that expertise with Amazonians to constitute that council. And of course, within a council, not everybody is at the same level. So being a security council, of course, you have a higher echelon and then a middle and of course a bottom. For those details, I'll probably invite one of the members of ANC to come in, or you could check this with the vice president when it comes on your platform or with the president. But as far as an average Amazonian is concerned, the ANSC is a council of experts with military skills and volunteers who are willing to share their skills. But this, they coordinate with representatives from all the 13 counties in that council. And that's how it's been functioning from day one till date. But of course, the commander in chief is paramount to that, and those decisions are made with his knowledge. I hope that clarifies what the ANSC is. Yeah,
Absolutely.
was
Yes,
that
clearly.
a question? You wanted to know how it's
Absolutely.
constituted, right?
Mm.
Yep. Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
yeah, with that, that's the Amazonian National Security Council, and who are the ones who have been uh, running this with La Republique. But what we're now doing is they all along they have been depending on the goodwill of the county chairs who are willing to support and pay money into the national treasury. You know, traditionally, when every county is drafted, the expectation is for that county to pay in 20% of the draft amount into the national treasury.
Okay.
And because of the discrepancies that I mentioned earlier between the counties, some counties don't pay this money for one reason or the other, and some do pay. And the ANSA has been working on those minimal figures that are paid in, and sometimes a majority of it is not paid. And as again from that memo, some of this the reluctance from some of the chairpersons is quite, is understandable, because the funds is meant for their county. And if they have the structures, if they have the manpower, if they have the know-how, if they have the things that take on to do what it takes to keep this struggle going, some of them argue that they don't have a reason to go and pay the money into the national treasury for NCS to come and use it in other places when they need it. So it becomes a problem for them to get the sufficient funds that they need to keep the war at the level that it's supposed to be. And that's a key point to redesign Award 23 to allow sufficient or significant amount of money at the disposal of ANSC. And in this year of acceleration, if Ambazonians can trust or can refer to, I think when we drafted, are we all right? Can you hear me?
Yes, we're together. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
when we drafted the federal government in February, the amount of money wasn't much. I think we ended with $28,000 and down to 18 that was paid cash in. Now, for all the actions that have been happening on home front from October to now, most of it has been from that little fund. Now, what we're trying to establish here is if Ambazonians can imagine all of what has been happening from October to now with that meager sum of money, if they can actually put together a figure that is being quoted is about $350 at the disposal of ANSC, those actions, all of Ambazonians would multiplied. And that is the reason that we will still in July, August, and September draft counties so that those counties that have those capabilities and still have the ARs who still need equipment would use those funds. So as the ANC is taking care of the overall fighters, specific counties with their own fighters would still have uh, significant money to finance their operations. And so that would hurt, we hope, the enemy more than just relying on the counties doing it on their own.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Nijo. This quite explains a lot about the discrepancies, and that's very necessary. But then another interesting thing is the tag, the winning phrase, the winning phase for this draft for year. Why? We'd like to know why this is, tagged the winning phase.
Right. The thing is, a game changer or a winning phase is we know the strength of our enemy. We know what that country, La République, is going through. I mean, if you walk down the memory lane, and one of the clips that I just saw on your newscast as I was in the studio was a gentleman who stood holding the cartridge that was used in 2016. And the next picture showed armored cars with machine guns loaded on them. If you can remember, you showed that clip at the start of the session. None of those machines exist in the Republic anymore. So we know we've been bleeding them. We know what they have, and we know what to do. I'm not an expert in security, excuse me, but we know that if we have sufficient funds and with the team that we have on home front and with the desperation that they are showing now in their negotiations, you talked about the charade, Canada charade. We don't want to go back to Switzerland, but when you see someone who thought that they were going to defeat us in 2 weeks, moving around and changing the person they're complaining to, they're looking for help, for somebody to come and help them, and thinking, oh, this person is not going to help. I think this person, if we go to this person, they're going to help us more. So no, we wouldn't come to you. We're going to this person. That is the level of desperation that we're talking about. That is the level of desperation that we're looking. This government knows that if we have sufficient funds this year will be a defining year in the Amazonian struggle. That's why there's so many titles. There's a year of acceleration, and this design, this strategic change of the Award 23 is going to be a game changer, just like Lava Storm and the rest of it came, and we are where we are. It's been a long 2 weeks since this day started this, so we keep going, and they know our stamina. If you listen to the president's interview on BBC, which I heard parts of it, clips of it here, we are ready. We know that it's going to be a long, it's a marathon, so we are not rushing. They're the ones who are rushing around now seeking help. There's one thing, I think you're coming to that question, but can I just check? So otherwise I could use this opportunity and explain the concept of the federal draft team leaders in the various zones. Are you coming to that? Do you have a question on that?
Yes, yes. We wanted to know why the differences are there, but nice, good theme. You're already there. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, I thought it's necessary for Ambazonians to understand the thinking behind. The thing, if we've now divided Ambazonia into 3 zones, and so for one zone to be functional, we will need some level of administration to coordinate the activities within that zone. Similarly, for each unit, which is a county in that zone, we also need a coordinator to champion the federal draft in that county. Now, look at this scenario. If resource mobilization was coordinating the draft for the 13 counties and moving around and setting up county groups to run these drafts, when we create the zones and we're going to draft Savannah on the 25th, we need to get the Amazonians in Savannah to claim ownership of that federal draft and coordinate it amongst themselves, because they know each other better than resource mobilization coming in. So the 5 counties in Savannah zone, Bui, Boyo, Menchum, TMC, and Ngokotunja, worked among themselves, and they know how many secretaries of states come out of, appointed from Bui, Boyo, from all those counties. They know amongst themselves how many county executives are there in Bui, Boyo, Menchum, and the rest. Now, is their zone. So for them to get involved and have the responsibility of ensuring that their zonal draft is successful, we would like to get them involved. So we need them to constitute themselves together and work among themselves and say, yes, we would like this person to be the team leader. A team leader would come from, so we're suggesting the financial secretaries of each county to be the team leader of the federal draft in that county. And the reason is simple. It's either the financial secretary or the treasurer, because they're the ones who know who is who. They have the records of those who draft and pay all their draft. They have the records of those who have pledged, haven't paid all of their draft. They have the records of those who are paying AID. They have the records of everybody. So we would like them to champion this federal draft because they've got the records already. So when they meet as the team of treasurers and the financial secretaries for those 5 counties, amongst themselves, they're going to pick one of them to be their team leader, because that's a team. of the five counties. And so one of them becomes the leader. And that leader would know, just an example, that Boyo has 10 draftees, Menchum has 15, DMC has another 10, Bui has so many, and Ngokotunja has so many. The total is with that team leader. So as we're coming there to draft, we know that this is the target we've set themselves, and then the other counties will come, and we can collect those figures as a group through the team leader, and it'll be much easier to manage. And that's how we came about creating the positions for zonal team leaders, just to give them the responsibility and ownership to say, this is your business, please take control, suggest how we can proceed, and that will hold hopefully for the other regions. I hope that makes sense.
Sense of organization. Absolutely. It also gives a sense of organization, towards the draft. Well, from all you've said, this strategic change is very significant. And speaking of the strategic change, what are the strategies for mobilization for this year's draft?
Right. These are the strategies I've just mentioned. So let us go back to composition. So previously, each county financial secretary or treasurer to serve as a federal draft county team leader. So in that county, to draw up a list of all cabinet members, judiciary, directors, county, and LG executives for that one county to ensure a successful completion of the draft. Now, that's one county. If you carry out that exercise in all the 5 counties, we would, by the time we're going for that draft, we know the total number of eligible persons to draft in that zone. Now, one of the things we are appealing is, if you read the one of the reasons why we had to do the federal draft, as one of the reasons where no room to hide. If you remember that phrase, it came about because in the past, my LGA listed about 25 people who have opted to draft, but out of those 25 people, only about 10 or 15 finally will make a payment. Okay, that's why we said in the past the drafts were mostly numbers. So you go to this county, they say, oh, we're going to be 300 of us drafting. You go to this county, oh, 80 of us drafting. But how many of those 80 finally actually draft and pay? Okay, that's where the numbers are, and that's what was happening in the past. We, in this federal draft, are going to avoid that. We're going to expect these county team leaders to tell us exactly how many people are there who are LGA chairs, treasurer, secretary, financial secretary, defense head, and HSS. Now, if you take an average LGA and there is 10 of them, and each county has about 5 LGAs, 5 times 10 is 50. But we know from the memo that some LGAs have collapsed. So in a nutshell, any numbers that will come from the team leader of that county would add to the actual numbers of the other counties, and we will have a global number for that zone, a zonal number, which would be the number that the team leader for that zone will be focusing on. We will not be looking at people who would only come and pledge and then not pay. No, there's no room to hide here. If the team leader says this county has 15 people, we would expect those 15 people to pay. And who are these people? The existing is cabinet members, IHR members, judicial members, directors, county heads, county assistant heads, county financial secretary, county treasurer, defense chief, because all these positions are filled by people. And so when they tell us that they're there, we know they are there. Does that make sense? So there's
Yeah,
there's no
now you
room to
actually
hide.
explained it.
Yet, if they
You
say there's 10 of
absolutely
them, we
explained
expect 10
the.
of them. Yeah. And so in the long run, we expect the federal draft to have a high turnover, a higher redemption rate than in the previous years, because we are going to go up for reduced numbers, but effective numbers, numbers that actually do exist, not theory. Yeah. Thank you.
Indeed, that's where the part of no room to hide comes to play. Indeed, that's where the part of no room to hide comes to play because of these
Yeah.
strategies put in place. Well, in terms of strategic analysis, project conceptualization, and possible execution, where would you say that the interim government is at this given moment, and what are the chances of success based on previous experiences?
Right. On previous experience, I would rather limit my answers as a resource mobilizer. The questions on strategies, and actual project execution would probably be directed to members of ANSC or members of the National Treasury who actually pay out requisitions and so know which projects have been executed and which have not been executed. But on the second part of your question about how how we expect success or something, did I get it wrong? Can you just repeat the question if I missed it?
Sure. Like, what are the chances of success based on the previous experiences?
Okay.
Or into the
So
new strategy?
yeah. So I'm avoiding your first part because it's too technical for me. I'll stay with the second part. But I think it's a good question. But I would suggest that you ask the right person who would have the information. It's either a team from the National Treasury, because they actually pay out the requisitions. When people have projects, they go and get the money, and they know which projects have been executed. But we at the resource mobilization, we would only get this information as every other Amazonian. So I would rather go on the experience. And of course, I just cited the experience I'm going to bank on here would be one to support the federal draft that we're driving home now, and for actions on home front that happened between October when we drafted the federal government and to date. And if you can look at the figures that we drafted, the cash that was paid in, I said earlier, $18,000. From your news clips from December till now, I think you can count, and sorry, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I mean Ambazonians can count how many popcorns have exploded, how many, just from your news channel. And don't forget that we probably missed some because I don't know how much coverage ABC has on home front, but some of the explosions we might miss. I'm just counting on those that have actually watched on your platform, and it's been a huge success considering the minimal amount of money. And one other measure of success is the reassurance that authority, and when I say authority, I'm looking at the president, the vice president, the ANSC, the work that they have done to reconnect with the fighters that the coup plotters almost derailed. And I've also watched and listened to clips on your platform from Grandpa of Bali, from a few other people who have realized the fantasy that they were told that was sheer fantasy. Now, all of that is a measure of a success that can be transposed on this federal draft, because that achievement has been gotten between October and now, and we can only assign that to the little funds that Ambazonians gave the federal government when they drafted. In as much, having said that, we also appreciate the counties that have supported them in the background, and it's not a hidden fact, and I'm not going to hesitate to say here that some counties are still sitting on, and rightfully so, they're still sitting on funds from 2020, 2021, and 2022 draft. You can quote me anywhere. This is a fact that some counties are still sitting on funds from 2020, 2021, 2022. Some of these counties have genuine reasons for sitting on the funds. The funds belong to their county, and for whatever reason, they need to be convinced to give out the money. Now, on the good note, some of these counties have been supporting the federal government in the background. When the government goes up to them to explain that, look, this is the target, this is what we need, some of them have actually gone to support them. So federal draft money belongs to everybody. County draft funds belong to each county, to that county, and they're entitled to it. They're entitled to how they spend it and why they spend it. So the appeal to Ambazonians is to give a chance to ANSC and the federal government between February and December 2023.
All right. Thank you so much, Nigel. Thank you so much for coming on Undaunted tonight to explain more of the reason why we must draft now, because we have to win. All right. We really appreciate your presence. We hope to have you or see you again before 25th, which is on a Saturday. But just in case we don't see you again, we already know what you are capable of, documenting and ensuring that the money comes in. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And just before I go, let me appreciate your having me, and of course to again, on behalf of Ambazonians, and I know this through social media, you girls and your team are doing an immeasurable job. We're still thinking of the rights that we might have to design for you once Ambazonian comes alive. So keep doing what you're doing, and we're watching. Thank you very much for having me, and please keep pushing the concept for federal draft on our behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. All right, and moving on, let's get some reports from West Africa right after this break.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
In West Africa, sequel to the updates on Naira scarcity has it that about a day ago, the presidential candidate of All Progressive Congress, APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had his house raided by Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and they uncovered 400 billion Naira new note. But the All Progressive Congress Presidential Campaign Council has debunked insinuations that the sum of 400 billion new Naira notes was discovered when operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commissions raided the home of its presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. This is even as the campaign council called for the arrest of the publishers for libel.
Now, the All Progressive Congress PCC rebuker is coming hours after the EFCC Economic, Financial and Crimes Commission of Nigeria also denied carrying out the raid on the residence of the former Lagos State governor. Now, on Sunday, an online platform, Igbo Times magazine, published the controversial report, and about 400 billion naira old notes were discovered by operatives of the EFCC after one of Tinubu's underground homes were raided. Now, the news gained traction on social media before it was refuted by the anti-graft agency on Sunday.
While denying the report in a tweet via its Twitter handle, the spokesperson for the commission, Wilson Uwujaring, urged Nigerians to disregard the report as fake news. Well, we can say much about Nigeria, but the heights of corruption in Africa didn't spare the country Nigeria, even though a lot of its citizens and celebrities are being very optimistic of the presidential candidate Peter Obi due to the integrity in his political history.
Go and verify has also been his slogan due to his confidence in his honesty and integrity. In the last few weeks, more pastors who did not want to directly state their opinion on their preferred presidential candidates have been forced to, due to the fact that some people still don't know the criteria of a wise candidate. And as quoted from the Holy Book by one pastor, he says, "When the wicked rule, the people perish, and when the righteous rule, the people rejoice," has been the motivating factor to encourage their audience, the right person to vote amongst all presidential candidates.
While we've treated other spheres of people supporting the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, today we take a look at a few international pastors from Nigeria talking about it. Let's have the video.
I saw one of the candidates and it was not himself. By the way, all the candidates, the major candidates, each one of them is somebody that I have great respect for. Make no mistakes about it. I like these guys. These are wonderful people who have done a lot for our country. All right. So for each one of them, I have very positive thoughts for each one of them. But you have to look in the spirit. And in the spirit, I saw the first one I mentioned yesterday. And it was a devil, an evil spirit, a wicked spirit that was wearing his face. Meaning that he doesn't even know what he's doing while he's campaigning and running for president. He's being used. A wicked spirit of darkness. And this spirit was a mocker. Today, when I was praying, as I was praying, the spirit called him a name. I was surprised. Because he said, "The jackal is cut off." I said, "Jackal?" I thought I knew the meaning of jackal. I had to go into the dictionary to find what is a jackal. I said, why do they call him a jackal? What is a jackal? It means a trickster, a swindler, and one that operates in behalf of another for the purpose of deception. That's one. So in the spirit, the second one, I said, what about him? What about the second one? He said, if you let him get in office, you will have no country. I said, Lord? Who let the second one in office will have no country. He said, you will have no country. Then in the spirit, I saw the third one. He was afraid. He was afraid he might win now. He was afraid of losing. He didn't want to lose, but he was almost scared of winning. I said, Lord. Then he says, pray. I said, God of heaven, give him wings to fly. Listen, listen, listen. When it comes to elections, because of the sensitivity of, some of our position, because I said they're all children spiritually. So I try to not, but if I see something that I've seen, I cannot say I didn't see it. Do you understand? But the first one, because of what it was, I won't mention the name. Neither will I mention the name of the second one. But the third one, his name is in the Bible. Let me finish. Let me finish. Can I finish?
All right, then moving on to other stories from the international scene. Turkey has ended rescue efforts in all but 2 provinces almost 2 weeks after a massive earthquake killed tens of thousands of people, the country's disaster energy said. However, hopes of finding anyone else alive in the rumble are fading fast. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has arrived in Turkey and announced $100 million in humanitarian aid. Now, the epicenter of the 7.8 magnitude earthquake on the 6th of February was in Kahramanmaraş. More than 44,000 people are confirmed to have lost their lives in southeastern Turkey and northern Syria.
Well, the death toll is expected to climb, with about 345,000 apartments in Turkey known to have been destroyed and many people still missing. Neither Turkey nor Syria have said how many people are still unaccounted for. Quote, many of our provinces' search and rescue efforts have been completed. This is the disaster agency's chief, Yunus Caesar, telling reporters in Ankara. He said search and rescue efforts were continuing at around 40 buildings in the 2 provinces, which he expected the number to fall by Sunday evening.
Rescue workers pulled at least from day 1 days after they were trapped when the earthquake hit. Mr. Blinken had arrived in Turkey to show support despite a trip being planned before the quake. It is his first trip to Turkey since he took over office more than 2 years ago. The new aid will be moving soon. Sadly, it's less about search and rescue but long-term recovery. Now, this is going to be a long-term effort, he told reporters.
Well, he added that getting aid into Syria was very, very challenging. He will travel to Hatay to see humanitarian efforts before traveling to meet President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday. The pair are expected to discuss issues including Turkey's refusal to ratify Sweden and Finland's NATO membership applications.
sports, who else but Lionel Messi, the Argentine, struck a magnificent late winner for Paris Saint-Germain Sunday to rescue a thrilling 4-3 comeback win over Lille.
In basketball, Jason Tatum scored an All-Star game record 55 points to lead Team Giannis to a 184-175 victory over Team LeBron in the NBA's annual showcase. Well, Gab Ellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Neymar suffers injury before Lionel Messi scores brilliant stoppage time winner for PSG. Who else but Lionel Messi? The Argentine struck a magnificent late winner for Paris Saint-Germain Sunday to secure a thrilling 4-3 comeback win over Lille. The downside for the Parisian club, however, was that Neymar was taken off on a stretcher in the second half with a suspected ankle injury. The win ends PSG's 3-game losing run and moves the team 8 points clear at the top of Ligue 1, although second-place Marseille plays later Sunday. Early goals from Kylian Mbappe, who on his return from injury ended the match with 2 goals, and Neymar had given PSG a 2-0 lead after just 17 minutes. But Bafana Diakite, Jonathan David and Jonathan Bamba scored for the visitors to put them 3-2 up. 5 minutes into the second half, Neymar was kicked on his calf and fell badly on his right ankle. The 31-year-old could be seen wincing as he held his right foot while being carried off the pitch on a stretcher. Mbappe leveled matters in the 87th minute, converting Joan Bernat's cross, and that appeared to be that. Only Messi won a stoppage time free kick. From 22 yards out, the Argentine struck his free kick brilliantly, curling it into the bottom corner for his 11th league goal of the season. The match was not great. We made a lot of mistakes, but we have shown that even when the context is not favorable, we can get through. We are a different team. We can get by all the time, Mbappe told Prime Video per Reuters. Basketball. NBA All-Star Game. Team Giannis beats Team LeBron as Jason Tatum scores record 55 points. Jason Tatum scored an All-Star Game record 55 points to lead Team Giannis to a 184-175 victory over Team LeBron in the NBA's annual showcase. Boston Celtics forward Tatum was named Most Valuable Player MVP as he broke the previous record of 52 points set by Anthony Davis in 2017. Opposition captain LeBron James missed the second half after injuring the little finger of his right hand. It means the world. Tatum, now a 4-time All-Star, said of his record. You think of all the legends and great players that have played this game. In all honesty, records are made to be broken. I'll hold it as long as I can, but I'm certain somebody will come along in a couple of years and try to break it. Tatum's Celtics teammate Jaylen Brown led Team LeBron with 35 points and a game-high 14 rebounds, while James exited on 13 points after hitting his finger against the rim while trying to block a shot. Los Angeles Lakers star James now shares the All-Star selections record of 19 with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but defeat in Salt Lake City on Sunday was his first of 6 All-Star games as captain. Winning captain Giannis Antetokounmpo scored the first point of the night with a dunk after 15 seconds before sitting out the rest of the game, having sprained his right wrist in the Milwaukee Bucks' final regular season game. With Team Giannis leading 158-141 at the end of the third quarter, a target score for victory of 182 was set. This 24 points higher than the winning side's score at that stage, an addition representing Kobe Bryant's shirt number during match of his career with the Los Angeles Lakers. And it was Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers who drained the decisive three-pointer to secure the victory. Brittany Griner signs one-year deal with Phoenix Mercury. After spending nearly 10 months in prison in Russia, WNBA star Brittany Griner is making her return to basketball in the upcoming season, signing a one-year deal with Phoenix Mercury, a source with direct knowledge told CNN. The 2-time Olympic gold medalist was released in December after spending nearly 300 days in Russian custody in a prisoner exchange with Russia. As soon as she was back home, she vowed to play in the WNBA again. It feels so good to be home. The last 10 months have been a battle at every turn, she wrote in a December post on Instagram. I dug deep to keep my faith, and it was the love from so many of you that helped keep me going. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to everyone for your help. I also want to make one thing very clear. I intend to play basketball for the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury this season, and in doing so, I look forward to being able to say thank you to those of you who advocated, wrote, and posted for me in person soon, Greener said. Greener, who for years had played in the WNBA off-season for a Russian women's basketball team, was arrested on drug smuggling charges at an airport in the Moscow region in February 2022. Her detention, which became an international cause during a tense time in relations between the US and Russia, was deemed wrongful by American officials. And despite her testimony that she had inadvertently packed the cannabis oil that was found in her luggage, she was sentenced to 9 years in prison in early August and was moved to a penal colony in the Mordovia Republic in mid-November after losing her appeal. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's give you a recap of our major stories.
In tonight's Undaunted, we took a look at La Republic du Cameroon's gendarmerie wiping an entire family in Babanki Tungo, also protecting Ambazonian citizens while looking forward to justice. Code named the winning phase, the interim government changed its strategy to finally dismantle the Franco-Cameroon strongholds in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia.
All right, today on the international scene, we give you an update of the election in Nigeria and also the update on the earthquake in Turkey. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing you the news on short stories. On behalf of Michael Anchor Starsmart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you.
Leaving with ABC and the TV News.